and a 10666 custom night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were criminals stuck in purgatory, we thought that all the secrets of FNAF could be solved using the game's custom night, where you'd set the animatronics to a specific level and see if you can make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was in fact not the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked and you'd have audio as well as visual this time around. But that just turns out to simply not be the case because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen cam at all. Meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd be getting trolled by FNAF 1's custom night, but more on that whole kerfuffle later on, maybe. Fun fact though, kerfuffle is what I named my first Club Penguin Puffle. And at 9, Tater the Waiter Gator. Tater the Waiter Gator was a fan-made character that was made just for fun. However, a fake Scott that also did a whole other fake FNAF thing took the model to Twitter claiming that they were a new animatronic. This guy was a real menace back in the day. And while it was indeed a joke, the appearance of an alligator face in FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame made people reconsider the canonicity of Tater the Waiter Gator. However, he isn't and was never canon, we think, with the alligator character mask being explained away with Montgomery Gator, who, luckily, is not a waiter. He's a golfer and apparently an assassin. We better get to solve the whole did Monty kill Bonnie thing in like the DLC to security breach, or I'm gonna be mad and destroy my own green room. I mean, maybe I won't because I don't have a green room, but I'll definitely be disappointed with the quality of the FNAF DLC if it's not about solving Bonnie. I mean, like, there's a multiplayer mode mod, so you also might as well add that. Okay, just do it. And a Purple Guy animatronic. The Purple Guy animatronic legend is an urban legend revolving around 2014's Five Nights at Freddy's 2. In early 2015, a YouTube video surfaced that reportedly showed a hidden animatronic reported to be the Purple Guy. You know, the main antagonist of the franchise, William Afton, the man behind the slaughter, mother of dragons, breaker of chains. Well, the appearance of the purple animatronic was preceded by a phone ringing. After the phone rang, the purple animatronic briefly flashed on screen, slumped against the wall in a similar style to Golden Freddy. However, it was soon revealed that the animatronic was simply a photoshopped image of Golden Freddy with a purple color scheme and a purple Chica head, which I feel like it's pretty obvious that that's the case. I mean, if you look at it, you can tell. And I mean, like, we've used that a couple times, but I never believed it. Plus, if there was a Purple Guy animatronic, it wouldn't just be reused assets. What are you on about? But there could still be a secret purple animatronic that we don't know about, or maybe Toxic Springtrap in this case is the key to everything. And it's 7, Cassidy. Since the beginning of FNAF, we have been wondering about the mysterious and seemingly supernatural entity of Golden Freddy. The entity able to travel through solid doors and walls, who gave us hallucinations and crashed our game when they got to us. Who was this mysterious being? Over the years, we got a few names, most notably with the gravestone ending in FNAF 6. But even with that, Golden Freddy's name had always eluded us. And if they are the one you should not have killed, or if they aren't, the name wasn't given to us in Ultimate Custom Night either. Only an alias, but alas, we were saved when the FNAF Survival Logbook came out, yet another FNAF book, where after jumping through more hoops than dogs at a dog show or dolphins at SeaWorld, we uncovered the name Cassidy. Thanks to wrong numbers on various pages becoming coordinates in the word search of all things. It was a lot for a name revealed that honestly didn't really mean much to the series, since the name Cassidy only appears in one other place, that being the final novel of the original trilogy, The Fourth Closet, and the ultimately scrapped Cassidy movie script, but since it was scrapped, the character is of little consequence otherwise, which sucks. And it's 6, Dream Theory. What is seen in the shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. Those words are from the developer of the series, Scott Cawthon himself, on his website during a Map Hat charity live stream where he says before, 4 games, 1 story. So what's going on? Players were scratching their heads for a long time about how this could be possible with one linear story, but like, how? And we came to one conclusion. Could it all be a dream? The online community at one point believed so. Apparently, because of FNAF 4, okay? We thought that was a dream, therefore we thought everything else was going to be one long vivid dream after Crying Child got bit by an animatronic in 1983. Fans believe the bite played out a lot differently than it actually did in the game series. So, does that mean that it originally was a dream and then Scott retconned it yet again and that was the one retcon? No idea. If that is the case though, is anything else in the series a dream? I don't know. Am I dreaming right now? I hope not. Is there really a dancing alligator dedicating a song to strippers and adult film stars? Yes, and that TikTok was very disturbing. Halfway through into number 5, John Wayne Gacy. Clown Springtrap is Springtrap's third skin in FNAF AR and the third skin to be introduced in the Dark Circus event. In addition to looking like a horrifying clown, he carries around a very large red mallet in his left hand. And considering how clowns are one of the most common fears in the world, with more people in the States being scared of clowns than global warming, or even terrorism, I think putting Clown Springtrap on this list is definitely understandable because, you know, John Wayne Gacy. This man, okay, he's like Harley Quinn, but not cute, and basically still meant to be a reference to John Wayne Gacy, at least as I understand it. John Wayne Gacy being a serial killer who used to do kids shows dressed as either Pogo or Patches the Clown. An inspiration that was assumed but not confirmed seemingly until this skin. It's also worth noting that this skin looks a lot like the supernatural version of John Wayne Gacy's ghost, so I feel like that's where the connection comes from. Plus, you know, a clown killer. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Princess Cassidy. According to one very adamant viewer during my last 24-hour live stream, that was a whole other set of emotional trauma, there's a theory that the princess in Princess Quest is actually meant to be Cassidy. And while I don't agree with that theory, it's still a theory nonetheless, so I might as well talk about it. This theory generated from some apparent files within one of the games. I'm guessing that it was security breach, given that there are 3 games in that one compared to FNAF VR's mobile version where there was only 1. But apparently, according to this viewer, those files indicated that it was Cassidy, because it was named Cassidy, okay? Apparently that they changed it, so there goes that evidence. But despite me saying that I didn't care what it found, they were very adamant and were swearing by it. They swore that it was Cassidy. The only reason that I could believe this would be for purely symbolic reasons, since Cassidy would technically be trying to torture William if they were the one you should not have killed, which I still don't believe, but that would also end up giving her a motive to free Vanessa from William's control. But that would be the only reasoning I'd be able to actually think of for this, which makes it seem more like a hypothesis than a theory to me, especially given that they changed the file, the name on the file, so it wasn't Cassidy. And while Cassidy may have been incorrect, it did end up containing a soul, the soul of Vanessa. So in the end, it is true, in a way, which makes it good enough for this list, okay? I'm kinda stretching at this point. 3 parts is a lot. But ultimately, into number 2, Gregory is 40. To be totally honest, the knowledge that Gregory has in Security Breach exceeds that of my own, okay? This kid is the size of a 4-year-old, can fit inside Freddy, can fit inside baby strollers and other various small areas around the Pizzaplex. He's too small to drive one of the go-karts alone, but he also knows how to restart generators, operate a trash compactor, start, and is capable of driving a car, as well as identifying a car battery, connecting the jumper cables on a car battery properly, and then using those to fix Freddy's whole recharge every hour issue. Okay, even I can't drive a car. I don't have my full license. How is this kid doing it? I don't even know what is this thing? Like, how in the living hell does this make any sense? How do they solve the whole recharge issue in the true ending? Because Freddy is still going to need to recharge every hour. But they don't have the van this time because they ran out from a cave. So how do Freddy and Gregory make it down the hill, or to whatever hill it is, without Freddy needing to recharge? Or, like, do they actually solve the issue? This kid knows more words than I do, but is still somehow the size of a 4-year-old, maybe, on, like, the shortest end of the spectrum. Like, no, it makes no sense. And this kid's weird superpower is what makes this game so confusing. It really only makes sense if he was a robot that is supposed to mimic a toddler who's been on for decades and then has been learning the whole time. That's the only thing that makes sense, and that's saying something. And finally, in at number 1, the Arcade Conspiracy. The Arcade Conspiracy gets its name from one of the lore duffel bags we can find around the Pizzaplex, where we learn that something else seems to be going on here. Quote from this Arcade Conspiracy note. Quote, exit interview. They are working together, the arcades. They're hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I'm so close. Just one more night, please. I can save the princess. Now, it's clear that this seems to be referring to the Princess Quest minigames. However, it doesn't really seem like we have to glitch the Princess Quest games in order to win. We just have to beat them in orders from 1 to 3, and then boom, we save Vanny. So, what does this actually actually mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game you can find in the theater in the Sun Drops Weird Room thing. Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when you unplug it, that you're supposed to be able to find in the bakery, and the Monty Golf AR Arcade that, according to its duffel bag, shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but it is. However, while you can play both Balloon Boy World and the Monty Golf game, my lowest score is 14 and the lowest score you can get is 13, so try to beat that. But Chica's Feeding Frenzy isn't an arcade cabinet. You can only access it using a mod that lets you cheat it in from the main menu, so maybe there is something else going on that we just can't access yet because the game was released unfinished and still cost $50 damn. And at 10, NES. With the interviews and therapy sessions we get in Security Breach, we got even more information and even more clues on the story of the previous 3 FNAF games. Well, okay, 2 main series games and then 1 spin-off. Yes, that's right. These therapy sessions actually ended up confirming our suspicions that Vanessa was indeed the Ness from FNAF AR. So with this revelation, we now know that in FNAF VR we played as Vanessa, who was probably put there by someone higher up at FAZBEAR Entertainment because they knew what Afton was planning, or maybe someone hacked. That's a whole separate thing. We got possessed, and then we got our mind locked away. And then we got sent to the special delivery section to install our virus on various animatronics as maybe a test run, and then we moved to head security guard for the Pizzaplex, which is where Security Breach starts. So thanks to this simple mention of Lewis and her looking up odd things at work, along with her secret encrypted conversations, we know the full story of Vanessa since FNAF VR. And at 9, Purgatory. Back when FNAF first released, MatPat came to the conclusion that in this game we were the killer, the man who killed the missing children and caused all of this to really happen, but that we were also trapped in purgatory for our crimes and that this game was our punishment for said crimes. And while at the time he was incorrect, Scott must have been listening, since eventually, 7 games, 6 books, multiple promos, and unlimited tiers later, he made this the premise of the game in Ultimate Custom Night. Later it would seemingly be retconned into a dream that William has, either while he's recharging his burn trap or while he's stuck in Vanny or something, but nevertheless MatPat was indeed eventually correct. I mean, we kind of have to take this as a win because despite it being for the wrong game, it did eventually turn out to be pretty true. Alright, that's insane when you think about it. And at 8, Purple Guy Identity. Before Sister Location's release, we could only speculate as to the name of the individual we knew as Springtrap and the Purple Guy. Tons of names were made, with Dave being the most popular and the one generally accepted, even now, kind of. However, the true Purple Guy name reveal of William Afton started in the FNAF novels, specifically the first novel in the actual novel series, The Silver Eyes. This was shown to those of us who didn't actually want to read the book by MatPat, because you know what, most people called the book cringe. But in his theory on the subject, he actually kind of agreed. A load of people were actually glad we finally had at least some form of canon name for the characters, and then others were mad because he had used the books for a theory which don't share the same continuity as the games, despite sharing the same canon of Five Nights at Freddy's. This theory, however, was ultimately confirmed to be true during Sister Location's starting scene, when we first hear Afton speak. Well, actually it wasn't by him, it was by the person he was talking to, which I'm assuming is like an FBI agent or some form of police officer. He was talking about Baby's various features, which is how we also found out that she has more to her than meets the color-changing eyes. And at 7, the 2-eye theory. The 2-eye theory states that in the bad ending to FNAF 3, there are 2 eyes lit up in the head and the back, which we assume is Golden Freddy to show that there are 2 souls inside the animatronic. This isn't the case at all, and I'm going to tell you why. Firstly, it would be more difficult to tell that it was an animatronic head if only one eye was lit up, since all we see of this head are the eyes, and it's just a reflection from the first light. Since there's one light in the head, it kind of bounces around since it's so dark, okay? That's just kind of how light works. Notice how Freddy also has light coming out of his other eye, but there's no 2 souls in Freddy, right? Secondly, Crying Child hadn't been introduced yet, not coming until the next game. That wasn't even going to happen until the community was disappointed with the Springtrap jump scare, since this was supposed to be the end of the series. That's why we released the Souls in the Happiest Day minigame. Also notice that only one person wears a Golden Freddy mask in that game, and according to the official Freddy Files Updated Edition book, quote, you'll see an image of broken animatronic heads, each with a lit eye, meaning that the Golden Freddy head in the back only has one eye that is on. Okay, and considering how this is the official guidebook to the series, we kind of need to take it as law. The only argument against this, it would be that Scott could have adapted the story after this, since in a Reddit post he said that he has only ever made one retcon, but didn't actually provide the retcon itself, so the intention between the 2 eyes could be the retcon. But given the Freddy Files book actually came out after, or at least the updated one did, I doubt it. And at 6, Puppet's Origins. The security puppet minigame was something that was quite the mystery to a few FNAF fans, since, well, if Charlotte was killed outside the restaurant, how was the puppet able to get possessed? Since we now know, we typically have to be in the vicinity of the object that we're possessing. This was explained to us in the security puppet minigame from FNAF 6, where we see the puppet crawl out to Charlotte in the rain after William is driven off. This was a simple yet much needed explanation, at least to me, since it was very confusing how the laws of what's possible seemingly change with the individual. But with that simple scene, we understood the whole story. How a loving father was scared for his daughter's safety, how she was in danger thanks to William, so in an effort to protect her, Henry developed a green wristband that had a specific coating on it. This code released a signal that the puppet animatronic would prioritize in case anything happened. Then, while stuck outside, William struck, which set off the bracelet alerting the puppet, who, in a last-ditch attempt to save her, crawled out in the rain and merged with Charlotte. A sad but evidently required story. Halfway through into number 5, Felix the Shark. Felix the Shark is the first story in FAZBEAR Frights 12, Felix the Shark, and unofficially the FAZBEAR Frights series 34th story, and it's written by Andrea Wagner. And I feel like this is, like, the entire book is more so FNAF urban legends since these didn't make it into official release. So this one in particular though is worth pointing out since it does resemble Sparky the dog in many ways. Dirk, an adult, reminisces about Freddy's with his group of friends. They all bond over the familiar characters of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. However, when Dirk brings up the character Felix the Shark, his friends get confused. He recalls specific details, that Felix the Shark was kept in an aquarium-like large tube around the pizzeria that visitors could enter and swim up along with him, but his friends believed that he was just making it up. Determined to prove this memory was true, Dirk visits multiple Freddy's locations in many states to find one that actually had a Felix. And finally, in a near abandoned town, he finds a few people who remember Felix, all of whom had terrible nightmares concerning him. And this is exactly how urban legends start and grow. And I mean, in this it turned out to be true, but come on, this whole book is urban legends, even by FNAF FAZBEAR Frights standards. Getting close to the end, in at number 4, We're the Killer. Well, yes, I did start playing through FNAF Beyond on the channel. Be sure you go watch that and share and like it if you want more. I'm not going to be doing more. I already know the end of the game. No matter what you do in the final battle against GLITCHTRAP, you end up getting stuck in the game while he gets out. And while maybe it's signifying that he's taking over your body or escaping from the game, what if instead he was passing the baton to you? I mean, I've already said it, right? It looks like he was taking over your body, like physically controlling it when you're not in the game. Yeah, that would mean that you were the new killer. But what if you were trapped in the game instead, and instead it drove you insane, until you do the same thing and switch with some unfortunate soul who ends up playing again, turning them into the code while you, as yourself, escape and then try to track down the man who took your life. I mean, if the game really was meant to be a soft reboot, wouldn't you becoming the killer really be the ultimate switch up? Well, not exactly. It was mostly right, okay? GLITCHTRAP did possess us and we did become the killer of the next game, since we play as Vanessa in that game, confirmed in the therapist recordings in Security Breach, but we don't go track down William, or we don't turn other people into code. We merely just get locked away and then Afton went after his own body. But I mean, hey, either way, we were still the killer. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Bunny Man's Urban Legend. Okay, so you know, I play video games to disconnect from reality. I'm sure some of you do too. When I play like super hot in VR, I know that I can't really do it in real life because I can't catch guns, but I can slow down time. But when scary games like FNAF are all of a sudden connected to real life horrible events, it's not really all that easy to play. And you know what? I hardly played them to begin with. Vanny is a follower of GLITCHTRAP, okay? You know that. She's the main villain of Security Breach, but players noticed something similar about the game's antagonist. Something connected to something very real from the 70s, the Bunny Man. In Fairfax County, Virginia, back in the late 70s, residents would report sightings of a Bunny Man who would run around and terrorize locals. They say the Bunny Man disappeared in the early 80s, but maybe they just disguised themselves as an animatronic, okay? Maybe the Bunny Man's still out there. You thought that Easter was a good idea? Ha, no, not anymore. Good luck sleeping tonight. Plus, I mean, Security Breach does have a very 80s aesthetic, so maybe this is where Bunny Man went. But ultimately, in at number 2, Happiest Day Masks. FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame was the final minigame required to get the good ending. The ending where the animatronics had no lights on in their heads and the spirits had been put to rest. But there was always something out of place that we didn't really mention at the beginning because we didn't really want to deal with it. But there are multiple characters wearing masks from animatronics we had never seen before. But why and how? Where did these masks of alligators, pigs, hippos, and elephants come from? Well, now we actually know. It was the mediocre melodies introduced into FNAF 6, and then the alligator ends up being Montgomery Gator from Security Breach. Because while it is a green mask, okay, a frog doesn't have a snout, okay? Which makes me think, when does that really take place? Although at this point, I don't think we can really pinpoint that. Maybe Monty has been around for a while and he just became more popular for Security Breach. After all, the other animatronics kind of got a bad rep, you know? Who knows? These animatronics may have existed for all of time, but we actually did think that there were more animatronics, and now we know we were right. And finally, in at number 1, Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter is a fictional character created by Thomas Harris. Lecter is a serial killer who then his victims, if you know what I'm saying. I feel like it's pretty obvious and I can't really say the word, but you know what I mean. Before his capture, he was actually a respected forensic psychiatrist, but after his incarceration, he's consulted by FBI agents Will Graham and Clarice Starling to help them find other serial killers, which is a whole other problem. His most iconic appearance is in Silence of the Lambs and the often misquoted line of "Hello Clarice" or "Have the lambs stopped screaming." And while you may not really see any similarities between AFTON and Lecter, we did seem to think that there were some. I mean, this dude's an absolute psycho. And you know what? This was confirmed as inspiration for his voice. According to his voice actor PJ Haywood in Sister Location, AFTON's voice actually was inspired by Hannibal Lecter in a way that like he's seemingly extremely calm even when he's about to kill someone, which is supported by some of his novel counterparts' quotes. So yeah, while it's not exactly directly inspiring AFTON, it inspired his voice. And if he had to add the fact that he's like, oh yeah, he's unnervingly calm even when he's about to kill someone, does that mean that whoever was interviewing AFTON is dead? In at 10, AFTON Possessed. A long time ago, I made a passing comment that AFTON wasn't actually dead. People were mad that I didn't put Springtrap on the original scariest animatronics list, and aside from him being literally so unscary that they had to make a whole new game to compensate, I also argued that since he's just a guy enhanced by robotics, he wasn't an animatronic and instead a cyborg. And in the great terms of Fallout 4, nobody liked that. Even when I cited the fact that even MatPat pointed out that Springtrap never dies. But that's aside the point. However, I was in fact proven correct when the story of the man in room 1280 came around to show us that William was unable to die thanks to the spirit of the one you should not have killed, a young boy with an alligator mask in the books who was keeping him alive so that he could suffer for his crimes. And until this day, most people still won't accept that despite it being proven, okay? They take him off life support in the book and he's still kicking after that, okay? So whether this hospital experience actually happens or not, the point of the book was to show us that AFTON was possessed and that's how he survived, okay? Someone needs to update the wikis, because they still say that he died as a human. He didn't really die until like the FNAF 6 fire, maybe when he became a sentient code, if we want to consider that dying. In at 9, the Golden Killer. I am absolutely positive that the FNAF universe has plenty of urban legends about these restaurants. I mean, like, how could they not? A place where kids keep going missing that then gets shut down and reopens almost every 5 years. If that's not a cause for urban legends, I don't know what is. Christ, this is one of the most horrifying stories a parent could ever hear about. Like, if anyone so much as looked at in our direction wrong as a kid, my father would ban us from returning. It was insane, and I'm honestly surprised that he didn't me. Either way, there must be tales of the Golden Killer that would dress in an animatronic suit and lure children away with the promise of free tickets and pizza. Obviously used as a cautionary tale by parents about the dangers of talking to strangers, but I think they may not realize how close and how serious these stories actually are, especially given that the Pizzaplex, at least when it's open, is still packed full of children despite 9 kids already going missing there. In at 8, Springtrap. Another urban legend from the FNAF universe that's also in the FNAF universe, like it's from the FNAF universe but also inside the FNAF universe, is Springtrap. The whole point of Springtrap was that he was an old animatronic that still worked that they set loose in the FAZBEAR Fright horror attraction. The attraction that was a replica of the old Freddy Fazbear's Pizza located inside an actual amusement park meant to revive the decades-old urban legends that surrounded the establishment from from 30 years ago. Springtrap's whole purpose was to be an urban legend. If we got to see more from like the actual universe, like materials and newspapers, I'm sure that they would have marketed the only working animatronic as horrifying and actually possessed by one of the original victims, all while being unaware that it was actually the killer that they had set loose once more. From a story standpoint, I see why they had to do it like this. It actually like puts stakes back into the series because the killer's out again. But my real question is, why did Henry sell the location? Okay, I mean, like, they bought the place to get scraps, right? So why did Henry sell it if he was just planning on burning it down? Like, why risk William getting loose? Why even burn it down when he was already trapped in the room and had been stuck in there for 30 years, okay? It seems painfully stupid in my opinion. Dude, you don't need to sell it, okay? Just let him suffer. And it's 7 investigation. Speaking of things that are too ridiculous for people to believe, do FNAF universe people think that the cops are horrible at their job? Like, we know that there was an investigation into the incidents thanks to Midnight Motorist from FNAF 6, but they never found the bodies. Like, even though the animatronics smelt like death and were oozing blood and mucus, so much that they had to shut down according to FNAF 1 newspaper clippings. So, what gives? Why did they close the investigation so quickly? Or why didn't they look into the suits when it was reported that they had blood on them? I don't care if it's the 80s and the police don't have the tech they do now. If a place you are investigating because there's missing people and you found no bodies and then something starts leaking blood, you go and check the thing out. You can't just leave and be like, that can't be related. Who the hell thinks like that? It's so stupid. And honestly, even though it's a game and like there had to be a reason to continue on, it shouldn't have happened. I get that like they found the body, like if they found the bodies, we wouldn't have gotten the games. But sometimes it's quality over quantity, okay? You know, maybe they had to meet their arrest quota for the month, so they just arrested someone. Is the incompetence of the police, like, is that a legend in this universe, or what do they think happened? And it's 666 custom night. In the good old days where all we figured was that we were a criminal stuck in purgatory, we thought that all the secrets of FNAF could be solved using the game's custom night, where you'd set the different characters to specific difficulty levels, and then you'd see if you can make it through. However, one such suggestion, the 666 suggestion, was in fact not the case. By setting the latter 3 animatronics to level 6, it was rumored that the kitchen camera would be unlocked and then you'd have audio as well as visual for this night. But that turned out to just simply not be the case, because, well, if you look at the game files, there is no visual for the kitchen camera. Meaning that no matter what, unless you added a version of it yourself, there would be no way to unlock that camera. And this wasn't the only time we'd end up getting trolled by FNAF 1 Custom Night, since later on the Custom Night having the code would indeed become true. However, that code was 1987 and it would just jump scare you instantly with Golden Freddy, which is literally the worst thing ever. Halfway through into number 5, Sparky the dog. It sounds cute at first, but don't let that name fool you, okay? He's haunting to look at. He's an animatronic, of course, but not a real one. In the early days of development, a rumor began to spread around, apparently reporting a 6th animatronic that would make an appearance in the game. So if Sparky did appear, it would have been pretty obvious, because he's a dog, and that's literally the only dog in the game. But the good news is that he wasn't real. But if he was, apparently he wasn't going to attack you. He was just going to stand and watch you for a bit, which is kind of worse. Screenshots, of course, hit the internet, but it was never a thing. I don't know why people think that this is... People still like message me going like, why haven't you made a list about Sparky the dog? Because he's not real. It's not a thing, okay? Like what? And then there was the fake Scott that was saying that Sparky was there the whole time. Or like, I wouldn't doubt it if Scott added him in a later game and was like, no, Sparky's been a character this whole time. What are you talking about? Because like, Scott is the ultimate gaslighter. Okay? He's the ultimate gaslighter, but he makes it clear when he is gaslighting you, so at least you don't think that you're actually crazy. It's very clear when he's doing it, but he still loves to do it. And at 4, FNAF Remake. For a while, we'd heard rumors of a FNAF remake. One that would be so utterly terrifying that we would forget all about the horrific implications it would have to the lore. But honestly, it was just that. Theories, rumors, speculation, legend. Until the announcement of the FAZBEAR Fanverse initiative. In that announcement, we were indeed proven, at least somewhat correct, with the lineup containing FNAF Plus, a reimagining of the first Freddy Fazbear game being created by FizzNom, the creator of A Shadow Over Freddy's, Porkchop's Adventure, and a major contributor to the original Pop Goes fan game. Originally, FizzNom was creating a remake of FNAF 2, known as Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Open Source, later renamed to another FNAF fan game Open Source, as practice for learning a new game engine. But since the game wasn't really a transformative remake of the original FNAF 2, Scott Cawthon did take the game down, because it was literally basically just FNAF 2. However, he was intrigued with the project and contacted FizzNom about making a original FNAF 1 remake, which now he is. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, first animatronics. We always figured that the FNAF 1 animatronics were the first ones made after the spring-locked versions of Bonnie and Freddy, but that was always just an assumption. But then, the FazFacts came in with the truth and dropped us some purebred apple of knowledge right at our feet. One of the FazFacts stated from FNAF AR says, quote, "Some of the first animatronics built by William Afton featured claw mechanisms that were able to hide away items inside." Which means that, strangely enough, the Funtime animatronics were the first ones that Afton made. I'm guessing after the spring-lock suits, which then solidified what we at least thought was the timeline at the time. Which, it does make other things more confusing, but at least we knew which ones are the closest to being made first without really having to speculate. And then that puts sister location near the start of the timeline. It doesn't mean that they were the actual first animatronics, only that they were made around the beginning, but it shows us that William also always had sinister intentions. Something that a lot of people need to know. But ultimately, in at number 2, the missing children's incident. The missing children's incident was an event that occurred in the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location, at least from the first game, presumably in 1985. A series of unsolved murders committed by William Afton. In the first game, the incident was mentioned in newspaper clippings, occasionally seen replacing the rules for safety sign, normally appearing in the East Hall. The 4 mascots, Freddy Fazbear, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, all also had particularly foul odors and what appeared to be blood and mucus around their eyes and mouth, which concerned parents and legal guardians and decided to akin to reanimated carcasses, since they, quote, "noticed what appeared to be blood and mucus around the eyes and mouths of the mascots, and they didn't check inside them for bodies." The children were never found, somehow, and presumed dead, and the restaurant ended up closing by year's end, which didn't stop them from reopening in Fazbear's Fright, and then with FNAF 6, and then again with the Pizzaplex. So yeah, needless to say, there's a whole load of issues surrounding the brains of the parents in this universe. And finally, in at number 1, the Bite of 87. Was that the Bite of 87? No, Markiplier, it was not. The bite from FNAF 4 was in 1983 and often called the Chomp or the Bite of 83. Okay, the Bite of 87 was an incident that occurred in 1987 at the second Freddy Fazbear's Pizza location. It was briefly mentioned by Phone Guy in the first game and it had us hooked from the get-go. The details of this attack and the identity of the animatronic responsible are really unknown, but it allegedly caused the victim to lose their frontal lobe, you know, the front part of their brain. The victim actually ended up surviving the attack, but the incident contributed to a loss in the company's reputation, understandably, which was one of the numerous incidents that resulted in a major drop in business. But not forever, for some reason. As a result of the incident, the animatronics were no longer allowed to wander around during the day. Instead, management decided to let their free roaming mode be exclusive to night, so as to prevent their servos from locking up, which is not how servos work, but maybe it's how they work in this universe. Some fans think that Foxy caused the bite, others think Freddy, Mangle, some even think that Chica might have done it. However, it's pretty generally accepted that Jeremy from FNAF 2 is the one who got bit. But I propose the possibility, okay, I'm not saying this is true, but it's an idea, that Afton himself is actually the one who got bit, which could have caused him to go even more berserk after the missing children's incident. Since, because you know, his frontal lobe was removed, he would no longer feel fear, as described by Mappet in his FNAF 4's wrong theory. I mean, that theory was wrong for the outcome, but not for the science, so maybe Matt was onto something. In at 10, Ghost Stories. There was a thread on the FNAF Reddit about role-playing as an in-universe FNAF outsider, and this tale comes from Super Bowl Meme, who thought that the ghost stories were just that, ghost stories. I remember going to Fazbear's during its final days open. It was fun, despite all the rumors surrounding the place. I went back there recently though, and my experience has shown me things I never could have imagined. I busted in late at night around 4 AM, and the place was abandoned for several years before this, and it showed. Without maintenance, the place looked like the opposite of somewhere children would want to go, and I looked around and I was trying to find something, like literally anything, but all I found was the stage and the performers. They were, old to say the least, completely rotten and moldy, and I could barely breathe around them. Then after seeing them, I noticed something. They were focusing on me. solely on me. Then Freddy blinked. I've never ran faster before, and I don't know if it was a dream or maybe those rumors are more than just stories. Their eyes told me everything. In at 9 Twitter. The Twitter account Diamond Zia on June 27, 2020 tweeted out 3 photos with the line FNAF will be real in 48 hours. These pictures were just of news articles. One from USA Today titled 5 children have gone missing inside Chuck E. Cheese. One from Associated Press called post-hour worker at Chuck E. Cheese reported dead at 27. And a final one from something news, couldn't quite tell what it was, saying night shift worker at Chuck E. Cheese's claims strange movement from animatronics during post hours. However, this title had animatronics spelled incorrect. Yeah, everyone was freaking out at the pictures and the articles, particularly the first one, and they were shared all across the internet. People were freaking out because, you know, we all thought that FNAF was going to be real. Chuck E. Cheese was closing at this time too. However, people didn't realize that these were fake. How are they fake, do you ask? Source code editing, okay? You can change whatever, like what anything says on a website. All you need to do is inspect the source code on like Google Chrome or something, okay? You just need to find the aspect that you're looking for, then once you do, you can change it to whatever you want. So whoever made the original image found an article about Chuck E. Cheese closing or something and then just changed it to 5 children going missing, okay? And the same thing with the other ones. That's why there was only pictures and not actual articles. However, now we know that Freddy Fazbear's is getting a pizza delivery service, so I guess technically, in a way, Freddy Fazbear's was real, but not in the actual location, okay? There's no location. And it ate doors. This was bound to be on a list eventually, okay? I hate the goddamn doors in this game. Why do they open when the power is out? That makes no sense. Even if it's like an electromagnet, like everyone keeps saying in the comments whenever I bring this up, those require power to turn on. So if anything, it would be costing power to keep the door open rather than closed. Gravity doesn't work in reverse. If the magnet is off, then the door would just fall down. I get that it's for gameplay purposes, okay, but what in this universe makes this make sense? There's no conceivable way that these doors should work in this fashion, but they do, and it makes me mad. Like, why would you do this to me? Sky Daddy Scott, bringing it back. Why? This is so stupid. I don't know. I don't know if anyone can actually believe that this is how they work, okay? Some people say it's a fire safety thing, but if the building runs out of power, how are the doors open? Electromagnets don't work like that. God, it would cost more power to keep them open. At least operating at normal logic levels, okay? The tails of these doors have to be some form of Legend of the FNAF universe, because they're just stupid. And at 7, Afton possessed. See how I changed the inflection? This time I put the emphasis on Afton instead of possessed. That's because this time around, Afton is the one doing the possessing instead of the one being possessed. Yes, we originally assumed that Vanny was going to be possessed by GLitchTrap, aka William Afton, aka the coded digital version of Afton's consciousness that possessed a VR video game. Yeah, but it definitely wasn't something that could be proven at the time. But after the release of FNAF Security Breach and the discovery of the therapist tapes at the end, we know that this theory was in fact correct. Vanessa did get possessed by GLitchTrap at the end of FNAF VR, and then Afton used her to get back to his old body. However, now it seems that both versions of Afton are kicking around, assuming that the blob didn't destroy Burntrap, something which we also still don't know, and probably won't know until the DLC comes out, or even maybe the next game, or maybe even a book, hell, maybe even the movie. And at 6, FNAF ARG. This was brought up in a recent MatPat FNAF theory, okay? The basic idea is that the FNAF FAZBEAR Frights books were originally going to have an ARG that Scott ended up cutting out for whatever reason, and then released part of it in the Felix the Shark Book 12. However, I'm here to tell you guys, not real. Scott has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't want to cross the line between fact and fiction, that he wanted to keep these two worlds separate, probably because FNAF relates so closely to Chuck E. Cheese, and there might be some legal trouble there, but that's also why he said he would never make a real location. He stuck so hard to that he didn't even make a website for the indie game dev introduced in FNAF VR because he thought that would be too fuzzy. So there is no FNAF ARG, okay? If a website relating to the game is too much, there is no bigger quest here. Last time we thought there was a restaurant and ended up getting harassed, and then a pizzeria owner who just so happened to be named Mike also got harassed, so please don't go out searching for this. And if there was one, I'm sure that Scott would have said something about it. Don't harass random people, okay? Just stick to the games and the game files themselves. But with that being said, said, with the appearance of a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza delivery service from Virtual Dining Concepts, maybe there's an outlet for Scott to release secret bits of lore. However, it would involve people needing to buy food, so if he chose to do that, it may not go over the best, but still, even if that is the case, it would only come from this virtual restaurant, nowhere else. Halfway through into number 5, Nathan Dunlap. In December of 1993, after Chuck E. Cheese had closed in Aurora, Colorado, Margaret Kohlberg, the manager, is tallying receipts in a back room. While she does that, Bobby Stevens scrubs down the kitchen, and Sylvia Crawwell, Ben Grant, and Colleen O'Connor all work in the main cleaning party area. However, there is someone secretly hiding in the bathroom, 19-year-old Nathan Dunlap. Earlier that year, he had began working as a cook before getting into an argument over his hours, which resulted in him losing his job. But this time, he wasn't looking for his job back, he was looking for revenge. He exited the bathroom and began firing, killing everyone in the building. First Sylvia, then Ben, then Colleen, and then he went into the kitchen where the bullet entered Bobby's jaw and sent him flying to the ground. Then he went into the back where Margaret opened the safe before being shot twice. Nathan then filled her bag with $1,500 cash, arcade tokens, and keychains, but thanks to the security cameras, he was promptly arrested and sentenced to death. This was originally pointed out to us by Game Theory and MatPat because it's actually kinda crazy how close these stories are. And while it may not be true that it was inspired by this, I still think that these stories are so close it's impossible not to think about. While the inspiration may not be true, the connection, even if accidental, certainly is. In at 4, FNAF AR. I've said it before and I will say it a million times. Why is the company sending out animatronics that they know are dangerous? The whole point of FNAF AR is that the company is sending these people animatronics to try and rebuild their reputation, right? But then they see that they're infected with the virus that's turning them hostile, and instead of recalling them like any normal company, they send out more, including multiple versions of the killer that caused them to ruin their reputation in the first place. What did they not think that like it was just an older Bonnie model and they're like, oh yeah, Springtrap? Okay, come on. If that was the case, it would be listed in AR as Old Bonnie or Spring Bonnie, not Springtrap, okay? They know exactly what they're doing and nobody called them out for it. Companies will get in trouble for making like the freaking tiniest mistake in their games, but then this company can get away with just letting people die. That's sus as hell, okay? Purple is sus. That's so ridiculous that the FNAF universe had to believe that this concept is just an urban legend, right? Like that's so dumb. Who would do that? Nobody would believe that it actually happened. Getting close to the end of number 3, Mrs. Afton's death. The story of Mrs. Afton, if there even is one, is a mystery that we've been debating for ages. A story that hasn't even had a slight amount of explanation. No references, no mention of a name, nada. So, naturally, there are theories. However, these theories have no base in actual game lore and instead focus on FNAF fan animated music videos and stories that are treated as canon and sadly, heavily so, sometimes. The truth is that we have no idea what actually happened to Mrs. Afton currently. We have no idea if there even was a Mrs. Afton or if it was just a baby mama or if William ended up having a surrogate so he could have children of his own, and hell, his kids may just be adopted or actually stolen. Yikes. Or maybe he used the ball pit from Into the Pit and went back in time and got kids from like 1920, which is also possible because FNAF made time travel a thing. Either way, for some reason, and I'm not quite sure what video caused this to pick up, I'm pretty sure it was the Living Tombstones, a lot of people think that Mrs. Afton died in a car accident. I mean, it's a possibility, but that doesn't mean that it is canon. There are other explanations, and no one really says those are canon, so I don't know why you think that a car accident is canon. There are also others that think that William killed her, or that she just left him because she found out what he was doing, but then for some reason left his prime demographic with him and didn't call the cops. And others think that her leaving is the reason that he started killing people. And you know what? All are equally possible, but nothing is actually canon, so stop it. But ultimately, in at number 2, FAZBEAR Frights. While yes, I did include Felix the Shark and his whole book on the list as a number, that's because those are like even legends in the FAZBEAR Frights universe, like I said, since they were cut stories that were thrown together for a cash grab 12th book, let's be honest. However, I think that by FNAF standards, all these stories would have to be legends. I mean, like, come on, the story of a man who can't die in a hospital. While relating to Afton, we know that it didn't happen since we see Afton in the burn trap suit in Security Breach, plus sea bonnies. Come on, that's so utterly insane and stupid that these stories must only fit into the lore by being legends. Like, things based in somewhat of a real original story that then get blown out of proportion to be something else, but with that root of reality. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the difference between a myth and a legend, okay? Myths are entirely fictional, then legends have kind of a root. That's the one thing I learned from my second semester, second year college elective, okay? It's the only thing though. This entire book series are just FNAF universe legends that are passed around in universe, which kind of makes them cooler because it's a look into like the general population of the FNAF universe, but that's a thing for another day. And finally, into number 1, God's Wrath. Okay, so this seems to be an easy way of interpreting multiple fires that keep happening at FNAF locations. It could possibly be seen as God, or a god, trying to cleanse the restaurants, or punishing them for causing so much grief, okay? I mean, think about it. There have been 3 fires now at FNAF locations, including FAZBEAR's Fright, the simulated pizzeria from FNAF 6, and then the security breach Mega Pizzaplex. Each location having some form of horrible story attached to it. And I think that in a way, the people may have started to see these places as cursed, or maybe every fire makes them think the place is cleansed of their darkness, which means that they can go back, which explains why everyone is just constantly returning to FAZBEAR's despite multiple kids going missing every time. Like in the security breach opening scene, it's packed full of kids despite there being 9 kids that have gone missing there already. So maybe the explanation is that the darkness and sins of the restaurant are cleansed due to fire. Or maybe they think that the place is cursed to eternally suffer God's wrath, and that's why there's so much darkness around the place. But then again, if you think that it's cursed to suffer God's wrath because of the horrible people, why would you go back? Basically, I'm using this to call out why are people going back, okay? It's stupid. Don't do it. Stop. Just think, please.